Welcome back. Our next guest, excuse me, and we'll get it out in the open, a family member, my cousin, Gerald Shapiro.
But not here because I'm a family member, because I merit being here.
Well, my mother called me and she
your
told
mother
me I
thinks
had to
I
have
merit
you.
being here.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And,
anyone that knows a tough nut to crack. So
yeah, and anyone that knows my mother knows that I rarely will ever get away with a no to her.
That's it.
Gerald Shapiro is paralegal.
Yes.
Tell us
good morning.
about...
First of all, good morning. Great to
you.
be here. And a rather good afternoon at this point. Gary, David, I've watched the show from offset, and I'll tell you for your
Our
first
green
show,
room?
Well, your green room. Yeah, it's a green room. We'll call it that. But I must say, I must compliment you on your hosting skills.
Well,
although I
thank
must
you.
say I've also seen you in court, so it's not a surprise, but I'm pleasantly pleased with the results.
Is he this nice in court?
No, but very efficient. Very efficient. Right. Yeah, having said that, not relating anything.
And I just want to put it out there, I'm not paying you to come up to
I think I paid you. No, but in any event. I'm here. I am a paralegal, licensed paralegal.
And what is that process?
Well,
how do you become a paralegal?
David Grossman talks about the mortgage brokering and mortgage agent process today and how the government has firmed it up, certification, schooling, what have you. Well, a few years ago, about 3 years ago, the government of Ontario, in their wisdom, decided to tighten up paralegal certification. So as a result...
so you're saying up until then,
it was
Wild West, as I referred to
pretty much, and you'd have a continuum of skills from very good to very bad, and people who thought they were very good but had no base knowledge. The bottom line is we have a full course certified by the Law Society now. We have to write entrance exams to the Law Society. It's not articling in a lawyer's sense, but yes, we do have to work in a legal arena for a certain amount of time and get our skills together. And we have to continue. We have continuous professional development.
Yes, you got
every
to take
year,
courses.
Throughout the year, as do lawyers. And so to distinguish paralegals from lawyers today in the province of Ontario, we provide, I would hesitate to say, a more affordable, I guess, expedient type of service in that we operate in the small claims court where the jurisdiction is now $25,000, which opens up a huge area of potential civil litigation and defending civil litigation. We perform services in the criminal law area, domestic assaults, for example. Also all the tribunals. The tribunals include landlord-tenant board, human rights tribunals, the Workman Safety Insurance Board, so on and so forth. So there's a huge area of law that we can now provide services for, knowledgeable services, and again licensed and more importantly insured, all right, under the regime of the Law Society.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, I have to be honest with you. I didn't even realize that you provide, or paralegals provide, that type of expansive service. Like, yes, I realize small claims court. I realize landlord-tenant, provincial offenses like traffic issues.
Yes.
However, I didn't realize about the administrative boards. But I just want to get back to the small claims court forum. It's been not all that long ago where the financial jurisdiction was increased from 10,000 to 25,000. And my experience in the small claims court system has been that, certainly from a lawyer's perspective, taking cost into account, I found that there is that range where an amount up to even almost $5,000, it's almost
prohibitive.
Yes.
Yes.
That it just doesn't make sense to hire a lawyer who's going to charge you $1,500, $2,000 to get back basically
Well,
the cost could be everything you're suing for.
Just to interject, if I may.
But let me just finish. So, and then I usually found that lawyers maybe the only way that it really made financial sense is when you got into the higher amounts, from the 15 perhaps thousand to 25,000. But there's a whole gambit. But my experience has been that the paralegals have been excellent. The quality of the work in many respects is outstanding. I found it far exceeded the ability of many lawyers, especially lawyers that will do the odd case, like doing one file every month. These are professionals trained in the law to provide this unique service almost on a daily basis. So they know the rules, they know the strategy, and I found that amazing.
Well, to begin with, and to appreciate the plight of lawyers graduating from law school, having invested a huge part of their life and financial resources, there wasn't a lot of interest in small claims court. Certainly when the jurisdiction was 6,000 and 10,000. Imagine you spent 4 years of your life, you may have spent $100,000, you're now working 60, 80 hours a week for a law firm, and trying to, sow your oats and grow. You're really not inclined to even think about that jurisdiction. Now, of course, with the expansion to $25,000, it's piqued lawyers' interest. However, they still did not spend any length of time studying the rules of the small claims court, which fall under the Courts of Justice Act. And so to that point, not to be dismissive of lawyers, they're not in that arena. Whereas, that's our thing. So I guess analogous to don't bring your Buick to a Volkswagen mechanic. I mean, as good as they are, certain people specialize in certain things, and that's where we cut our chops. Being in front of small claims court, understanding the nuances and the psychology, because small claims court, unlike superior court or general division court, black letter law doesn't necessarily apply. So you've got to be as much a legal advocate as a street fighter. And so that meld, whereas there's less formality. And so again, a lawyer, as skilled as they may be a fish out of water. And many times I'm up against lawyers.
And I found that to be the case.
And I can argue, and again, it's who you are, who we are today. And of course, the education that we've been obliged to complete. And I'll tell you, it has made paralegals that much better. And certainly, I know from my point of view, I pride myself on my work and continually look to do better for my clients and bring value to my clients.
I think that's great.
Gerald, do lawyers refer clients to you? Because I remember about a year ago, I had a small claims thing, and I spoke to one or two lawyers, and neither of them, they just said, "Oh, it's small claims. You can represent yourself." And I ended up going in there, and I had 5 people across the table from me, and I'm sitting there by myself, and I did okay, but I'm sure I would have done better if I'd had somebody like you.
You hit the nail on the head. Here we are in a studio today. Many people would get in front of a camera and seize up. It's very much like thinking you're an actor and getting up on stage and acting. And I don't ever not encourage my client to go and do it themselves if they so feel compelled. The one thing I do try to relate to them is the psychology of being in court. It's like theater. And so, this is what I remember the first time I had to go to court, I nearly wanted to throw up. And here I was a graduate, and someone was paying me, all right? And so I still stuck in my head. And there's always a certain amount of hesitation and nervousness, because I do want to achieve and do the best. I'm not bulletproof, but yet I feel important to win for my client. Having said that, lay people like yourself, and seasoned professionals like yourself, all right, still, when they get into court, and court speak takes over, and judges and clerks are talking to each other, and so on and so forth. Well, yes, it dwarfs all your abilities, and people really shrink, and so that's when they realize the value of representation.
I think the judges too, they'll give you more credibility if you have legal representation. Like
it cuts both ways. People who come in self-represented get large sway by the judge.
Oh,
The
yeah.
judge, somehow feels compelled to almost dumb it down in a way. But notwithstanding, the rules are the rules, and more people, and the value of the cases themselves being up to $25,000, merit having representation. I mean, it's one thing to go in and, for $5,000 defend yourself and lose. It's another thing to go in for $25,000 and lose, and not realize that you lost because you really didn't know how to do the research. You didn't know how to argue the cases. You didn't have that comfort in front of it. You didn't know how to question a witness. And so, it's very, very important to consider all those things.
Strategy is also really important. I know that from some of my experience, and I do very little small claims court work because I feel that I rather refer to someone that really has a feel for that type of work. But I remember in one case acting for a plaintiff, a woman who was suing a chain for damage done to her car. Interestingly enough, the defendant, big chain, lot of money, had fancy lawyer, high-priced lawyers there, actually had 2 lawyers in small claims court. And I had counseled her to go there on her own and prepped her for it. And it was a very curious thing because the judge really tried to help the poor woman who had no lawyer versus the big corporate company who had high-priced lawyers. And in fact, as it worked out, the judge amended the claim and gave her $500 more than what she was claiming. So strategy is important too.
Strategy is very, very important. But I must say, in that scenario, the fact that it went to court, in the first place, was probably the tragedy. Because what we also bring to the table is mediative skills. And I must tell you that 80% of most cases settle in mediation. It doesn't have to go to trial.
Right.
In fact, when an advocate, a licensee like myself, shows up at the table with lawyers from the biggest firms in Toronto, they know that we're serious, and they're more inclined to settle, because we can add up in our heads what this is going to cost. And what we really try and do is we try and mediate, we try and resolve, we try and make our clients and also the other side understand the opportunity cost or what it's going to cost to go forward. And again, 80% settle. So, go to court, do a trial, but if you can mediate, and save yourself 6 months to a year, all right, that's the way to go.
Absolutely. Now, before we leave this portion, you're well experienced in real estate-related small claims court matters.
Oh, yeah.
You've acted on a lot of agreements of purchase and sale and breaches.
Well, breaches, yes.
Okay. Also, you do landlord-tenant work.
Landlord-tenant board representation, yes, for tenants and landlords. Yes.
And for our real estate and mortgage professionals, we're always in our cars. And unfortunately, sometimes we get caught doing things we shouldn't do.
Smile, but it's
texting or what?
No, it's not driving. It's just a matter of statistics. The more you drive, the more opportunity you have to get stopped for doing something. It's a wrong turn.
And you do provincial offenses.
I do provincial offenses.
Okay,
and I do a wonderful job.
Who is your ideal client?
I don't have an ideal client. My ideal client is someone who's easy to get along with and pays the bills. All right, but in general, I will not take a client on if I don't feel there's a case. First of all,
right.
All right. So I'm not here.
I'm too busy money.
Anyway. Exactly. And so I do bring value for that reason. So anybody is my client. Language is no issue. I'm multilingual. I have multilingual associates, and so I'm just eager and willing to serve. And my son is graduating too, and top of his class. And
it's going to be another Shapiro.
Another Shapiro.
Another Shapiro.
That's right.
In the legal.
Well, we are a brand name in law. Okay, I must thank OJ and
Okay, well, let's not go there.
Yeah.
To wrap things up with you, Gerald, if someone wants to contact you, do you have a phone number?
They can reach me 24/7 at 647-932-2147. Remember, 647-932-2147.
Well, thank you very much.
A pleasure really being here.
And it's great having you. And
hope I don't need to call you at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Well, 1 o'clock in the morning, you can, all right? I mean, answer,
you said 24/7.
Well, no, I answer 24/7, yes.
And I got to tell you, as a little tip to the viewers, don't have your dogs sitting in your lap while you're driving. I got caught for that.
Oh, yes.
Because although I wasn't using
Yeah.
a cell phone or texting, I had
Yes.
my dog in my lap
That's-
and I got
that's a
caught.
no-no.
And that's a no-no.
That is a
That
no-no.
is-
And it
That's
did.
right.
And when the
Distracted driving.
police officer, when I lowered the window and he put a pen or started to point, my dog went to bite him.
Well,
which
you're
is
at that-
also
well,
not
excuse me,
good.
That's a provincial offense, dog owner liability act.
Yes.
We won't go there.
We won't go there.
All right.
Thanks, Gerald.
Pleasure. Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much. Great being with you.
We're going to take a break once again, and when we come back, we will have two leading agents
Couple
with
of stars.
RE/MAX stars, Bella Lee and Ellie Bakhtari, who will tell us about their business. And then we're going to have a little bit of a roundtable with them involving what's going on in the marketplace today. Thank you very much, and we'll be back soon.
Super.